Okay, I'm Bob Brokaw, for those that may not know me, like the YouTube audience. What I'm going to attempt to show you today is a design I came up with for a flag box. I guess it was about 5 or 6 years ago. Rob gave me the challenge that he had several flags that he wanted to display in a box. So I started doing some research on how to build a flag box. What an experience. Most of them were probably 24 parts, some molding and joinery and stuff like that that would be a challenge for even the most accomplished woodworker. And I thought there's got to be a simpler way than this. So I set out to start thinking about how to make a fairly simple flag box. And what I came up with was the notion of building this whole side and all the features that had to be dealt with as one piece. And the resulting piece, I'll pass around a sample of. Marks on the inside of that thing were set up that I had done, so it was a little more crude. So that's the end result of what we were dealing with there. So now we need to go through some steps as to how I got there. And since I didn't think to set up the overhead projector, let me set that down there so the camera can get that. Since I spent a goodly part of my career in the metalworking industry as well, when you go to make this thing, the idea is that you need to remove a bunch of material from underneath. Well, how do you go about doing that? A couple of choices are a dado blade on a table saw or a router. And I thought, well, I like routers, so let's go that way. So the downside of making a piece like that on the router table is that you're not level. So you have to accommodate this thing to make it level. So I thought to myself, well, how about if I add on an extra 1/4 inch on there to make a leg, so that when you go to machine this thing, it stays level till you get everything, all the features in there that you want. Then you take it over to the table saw and you cut that 1/4 inch off. Seems simple enough. So that's what we're going to cover today, is the, now that you know the metamorphosis that I went under to create all this thing. So the first thing that comes to mind is how you go about starting this first cut. Set this over here so our cameraman can get a shot of this. Now keep in mind that the blank that we're going to put on here will wind up in about that configuration. So that winds up being 3 1/4 inches from the back of this fence. So what you need to do is be able to adjust the fence 3 1/4 inches back from the front edge of that cutter. Kind of my favorite tool for doing that is one of these horseshoe depth gauges. The downside of that is at full extension, you haven't got quite enough gauge.
Better go buy another one.
Must be. So what I did instead is I looked through some of my machinist toys, and I came up with 1, 2, 3 blocks, which are these days are pretty inexpensive. You get that and set that there, use that as your gauge, knowing full well that this is exactly 3.000 inches. That sounds pretty accurate to me. I think even our most critical woodworker would be pleased with that tolerance. So I set this now to 3 1/4 inches using this 1, 2, 3 block. I lock down the fence and then take my measurement tools away. Oh, the other dimension that you need to set is the height of the cutter. I set that to 1/4 inch. So I'm going to be taking off 1/4 inch at a time with a 1/2 inch cutter bit. Main reason I chose a 1/2 inch cutter bit, could have used a 1 inch, just to make the math easy. And also, you don't want to try to take off too much material at one time with a router. Otherwise, you can mess up your work. You can mess up your body parts that may get involved, as some of our people have. Let me get this adjustment tool out of the way here. Okay, let's park this thing for a minute while we hook up the vacuum and get the router.
Question for you.
Sure.
This is a lot of work to get that front lip, which is used to stop the glass or plexiglass.
Right.
You said you looked at other designs which might have a piece of molding that you just put on there to create that lip. You decided not to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Primarily because, well, you would have to not only miter the blank itself, then you've got to turn around and execute the same miter for the molding. Then you got to figure out a way to affix it and keep it there without splitting out the molding or the flag case. And then quite oftentimes you got to do something to accommodate a back. So you need some sort of a stop that you got to put in there. Again, execute some more cuts and some more miters and some more opportunities to split wood. So I chose to go this way, and there's one additional benefit that we'll come to that I'll address that in a moment. You ready to go? Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, now then a couple of things. You'll notice that I was using grippers or gripper equivalents to feed this thing through there. I learned by the school of experience that one of your vulnerabilities in using a router, if you go executing this type of maneuver here, if something goes wrong with your bit or your collet or some combination of the two, what will wind up happening most times is that bit will start climbing. And it will be quite a surprise when all of a sudden your finger runs into a spinning bit that has come completely through the board. That's something that you don't want to do, if possible. That's why you use something like this. And in all cases, in using a router, you want to keep your wits about you. You'll notice the sound that this thing made. You memorize that sound. If it starts making anything much different, investigate. Stop. Check it out, especially one of the things you want to investigate is you're cutting along and all of a sudden there's yellow parts, chips coming out from everywhere. What do you think that might be?
Getting close to my fingers.
Yeah. So keep your senses about you. And if all of a sudden your mind starts sending you signals that something is not quite right, listen to it, stop and check it out, figure out why. Okay, that's one of the safety lectures. Okay, now then, the next thing that we need to do, we basically need to step this across another 1/2 inch. A couple of different ways we can do that. We can break out the 1, 2, 3 blocks and clear all the stuff off the tabletop and get the depth gauge out there and measure off the front edge again. I found over the years that there's a whole lot simpler way to do it than that. You take a 1/2 inch shim, you put that there, use one of these nifty Irwin squeeze clamps. Okay, so what we just did is we moved the fence a 1/2 inch.
I got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the things that I particularly like about this combination of tools is that this one has drop-down stops in the back end. That stop, gravity puts it down in a position like that so that you can hook that over the end of the board, and with a long reach you can push the last 3 or 4 feet through. Okay, for those that are not accustomed to using a router table before, what I failed to mention previously is this is referred to as a feather board. Its purpose in life is to push against the piece of stock that I'm cutting, to push it all the way back against the fence to register it. Not necessarily a safety device, but it's to produce good results. Yeah, because the direction of blade rotation is gonna have a tendency to push the board back against you, so those fingers give you some assistance, so that in the event that you loosen your grip, it's not going to throw the board back at you, at least not without warning. That's cherry. Okay, another reason why I like this particular type of router lift is we can pretty quickly change bits, change heights, all that type of stuff. Okay, what I'm doing here is changing to a 1/4" collet with a 1/4" bit. Strictly because I couldn't find a 1/4" bit that was adapted to a 1/2" shank. That's close enough. Okay, what I did just then was number one, made sure that the router was unplugged. The last thing I wanted to do is get a hold of some sharp, high-speed parts there, because I wanted to rotate the cutter bit so that it's pointing toward the fence and toward the cut that I'm about to make. Okay, let me see what I just measured that thing for. Yep.
Camera just went so long.
Okay, what I just did a setup for there, the intent is that I want to get clear of here, because this, I'm declaring that this is going to be my leg that I'm going to cut off. So I want to get clear of that leg and cut a 1/4 inch dado into here, the full length of the board. Then I'm going to cut this leg off. So this whole effort so far has been to channel all this out in the center while still maintaining 2 legs there for stability. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through one more time there, because what we've got here is, because of the fact the bit was trapped, all the sawdust remained impacted into the cut. By making another pass through here, it's going to clear all that. So all of that effort was just to save some cleanup. So that pretty much concludes our router work for the time being. Any questions? Anything I didn't cover for you? Okay, now the next step is we're going to move over here and make a little bit of noise with this machine.
It won't make a difference.
Just gonna throw it that way, Jeff. Here, just Mickey behind you, don't worry about it.
Okay, we got power yet?
Yes.
Yep, we do.
Plugged in, it's plugged in.
Okay, now then we just converted our dado to a rabbit. Until our camera operator's having trouble finding the end of the board there.
Yeah.
Okay, now then with a little bit of trimming up, that I'll spare you the agony of doing that. I got a little block plane over here that I can clean up all these little fibers that are left over inside. Now what you would typically do is sand your exposed surfaces there. Yet another reason I like this technique is that once you've done that, you can now take off and finish this whole board. Everything that you see in front of you, is going to be exactly that way when you assemble it. Because when you go cutting your miters into it and so forth, and you will expose fresh wood for glue purposes, so that once you glue the whole thing together, you've now got a complete finished flag box. And that's what we're gonna work with next as soon as we go through this magical transformation here. If Larry will do his magic there and replace that board with that other one back there. So after you finish it, you now wind up with a board that looks like this. You could cut your angles into it, your miters, and all that, and you wind up with a really nice looking presentation flag box when you're all done. So I will show you how I go about doing that. Okay, all I'm going to do is create a crisp edge on this end.
What's the angle that you're cutting?
Okay, Larry, you want to grab a hold of that?
Stop.
Yeah. Well, no, I discovered here that I'm shutting off the saw stop there for those that are curious as to what I was doing. The riving knife is creating too much interference here because I haven't got clearance for it. So I'm going to pop the riving knife out. It's requiring more oomph than I can deliver today. There we go. Okay, now that I'm going to cheat and use a previous flag case here. Not yet.
You're just cutting it fine.
I'm just getting a square cut here.
What are the measurements on those pieces?
That long?
Can't see it from-
I've got it written down on another sheet, but
Yeah, captured on
I was trying
paper
to
earlier.
speed things up here a little bit.
I already got that in camera. Okay, I got it in.
I guess that depends on what size flag you're working with, right?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I chose this particular box, is that this box will fit either a burial flag or a display flag, commemorative type. Commemorative type is 3x5. The burial flag, I think it's 9.5 in one dimension and was it 4 in the other?
That can be 4 by 10, I think.
No, it's not. It's like 9.5 maybe, something like that. At any rate, when I started this, I had some flag cases at home, and Rob gave me a display flag. Says, here, use this. It was when I found out it was 3x5. Without even looking at it, I went through the customary, double lengthwise fold that you do for a burial flag, and then proceeded to trifold it till I got down to the end. I'm going, this sure looks awful small. for this box. And it was. So I thought, well, how do I recover from this? I started doing some research on the internet and found a site out there that says, here's how you fold a 3x5 flag to fit in a burial display case. And you begin by doing you fold it in half with the star field down, so you're folding it away from you. Then you begin your trifold from the far end by folding the hemmed end up. Then you proceed to start folding it in a triangle after that, and it fits just like you see in this box behind me here. I thought, well, that's just real slick. Been determined you're going to get me mixed up here, Larry.
I'm trying. This is scrap.
There, yes, it is.
And these aren't needed anymore.
Well, don't go too far with them. I may need them for visual. Okay, I'm done with that sled.
Okay. Which one do you want?
I'm going to use this next. Okay, now then, this is going to get some folks excited. Everybody has heard how easy it is to set off one of these saw stop blades by having the blade contact anything, regardless of how microscopic it is, but if you contact any metal, you're going to set that thing off. What I'm doing right now is I'm setting the tilt of the blade at 22.5 degrees. For those who've not seen one of these before, it's referred to as a tilt box or an angle gauge. You can put that on a metallic surface. It's got magnets on there. You register it against a flat surface, and what better flat surface than the top of your table saw? Then you put it against the blade. Okay, there we go.
I know.
So with that, the reason for the 22.5, when you combine two 22.5 degree angles, you wind up with a 45. So at the base of the flag box, this outer angle is 45. The top one up here is 90. So what we're going to do next, we're going to cut those 22.5 degree angles. Okay, and believe me, it does clear the blade. Not by a lot, but it does clear the blade. I tested it out yesterday. Okay, so this tool here, for people that have not seen one of these before, is a tenoning jig made by Delta. They used to be quite popular 20 or 25 years ago for making tenons. There's a whole lot of other ways to do it now. I set this face so that it's perfectly perpendicular to the table. I set this stop again so it is perpendicular to the and square to the edge of the board, so that everything is upright. I'd rather have something nice, rigid, mechanical, something I can practically swing on before I go executing this maneuver. So let's cut that. I was going real slow at the tail end there to prevent chip out. Now we're going to cut another one of those angles in here. Okay, so now what I'm about to do is match that angle. Again, I'm keeping in mind the stop for the glass is on the proper side. It's flat 45.
Okay.
Okay. Oops.
Have to lower it.
Okay, if I've got it right, that end ought to be sharp, which it is.
Made some of the keepsake boxes.
Ordinarily at home, what I'll do is I got the location of that on-off switch memorized, so I'll just smack the thing with my knee. The only thing is, since the knee surgery, I'm not ready to test that quite yet. Yeah, it looks much better. Okay, so that's how this will go together when the time comes. Larry, you want to make that thing going? Reset the saw blade and go. Convert the tabletop of the saw into a workbench like so many locations I know of.
The only big flat area in my shop. I've got my forehead. Have you finished with the saw?
Yes.
I just thought I'd stretch a little.
Okay, now then, when it comes time to assemble these, yes, I'm getting there.
I'll just touch it a little by itself.
These will maintenance. But they know they get about maintenance not this one. I got a different version.
Okay, as y'all look at that flag box up there, you could just imagine the clamping and jigs and stuff like that that you would have to come up with in order to try to clamp that thing for gluing purposes. I found a way that I like much better.
Well, I'm not sure if you'd actually have to. If you get somebody like Larry around, they want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
They're getting fixed too.
Yeah, we oftentimes abuse Larry by saying he can't make scrap without a fixture.
Well, I don't get much scrap because Hans steals them.
Yeah, true. What I'm doing here is making a painter's tape hinge. So that when we're ready to glue this thing, first thing you do is you dry fit it. By putting it together like that. And then when you're ready to do your final glue up on the thing, all you do is open it back up, turn Rob loose with a glue bottle to glue the edges there. No, I only brought a small jar this time. I figured that ought to be enough. But then you fold the thing back up again.
You put it from behind. It's not sitting in like a rabbit or dado.
So that's the method by which you create a flag box.
Do you have your parts you put beside it so we can show how you put the glass and stuff in?
Do I have a what now?
Did you bring the plexiglass, how we slide it in from the back? They were expecting it to be in a dado, which we don't use dado with this.
Yep.
Yeah, you're super good.
Keep from scratching.
You can just leave it on if you want.
Well, I have to ask, did you do anything special to cut these?
Yeah, I cut it to size. So it goes together like that. Now, what I've done with all the rest of the flag cases that I do, Some people will use some type of weather stripping or caulk or something like that to hold it in place. What I prefer to use is self-stick weather stripping. I will put a strip in here and then show the camera so that
So you're putting that on the plexiglass or on the wood?
no, I'm putting it on the wood.
Can't
You
see.
could actually make a small triangle that you put inside, so you know it fits in there. Some people actually take the flag, put it on there with a triangle around it, so it makes a perfect shape of the flag, but it's not folded properly, because you have a field on it.
The idea behind that is you can now push against the glass and the weather stripping will give some, so it's compliant. And you actually only need 2 pieces of weather stripping to hold the thing in there. You know, you could put some additional across the bottom so that it doesn't bounce like that. Then the last thing you do is put the back on. You can either nail it or use some type of fastener or tack or something like that. What I did is I used small-headed nails on this other one that we talked about here. Just for temporary purposes, since I wasn't sure quite what Rob wanted to do with this flag, I just used 3 nails, one at each corner, to hold this thing in place so that if you needed to gain access to the flag for some reason, you can still do so.
So when you finish, it's basically a sealed container.
Yep. Except I knew that Rob had a certificate that he wanted to affix to the back. I think we maybe need to reduce that. Didn't you say it was an 8.5 by 11?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we probably need to make a reduced size version of that to adhere to the back.
Only reason I want to attach it is I've got like 3 of these things,
Yeah.
from different events, and I want to be able to say this one flew with this one.
Well,
this one,
I've
this
got
one.
I've got about half of them because I got that one that you gave me, and I think that one's there's yours that I don't remember what it's for.
I don't
You
know.
gave it to me recently. So, any questions? Yeah. Thank you.